Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Deobra Redden. This video, where Deobra Redden leaps to attack a judge, has been widely circulated. And what we're going to be looking at today is the body language before it happened, during, and then the follow-up sentencing that happened later. A couple of quick things before we get started. One, I wanted to remind you this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. That's particularly important in this video because his mental health is talked about, but I'm not going to be providing a diagnosis or really getting into a lot of specifics about his mental health, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Last thing before we get started is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. So we're going to start by watching Mr. Redden talking to the judge to see what led up to the attack.
Mr. Redden, is there anything you want to say on your own behalf before I pronounce sentence?
So basically, I would like to tell the courts, everyone here, like, based on my criminal history, like, I feel that.
So one thing you're seeing right now, you're seeing him move his hands a lot. There's a lot of energy there. He's being emphatic. Whatever it is that he's saying, he wants to make sure he's being heard. That's a large part of why people are emphatic. They want to make sure they're getting a point across. So what he's saying right now is likely very important to him.
Like, I shouldn't be, like, sent to prison for a second time.
Have you looked at your criminal history? Have you looked at your criminal history?
I actually just, I look at it.
I mean, you lived it, I
I
suppose.
just looked at it. Yeah.
So you'll also notice that the judge is talking over him a bit, is interrupting. She probably gets very tired of dealing with people day in and day out that have committed various crimes. I do understand in a position like this, you probably do get a little bit tired of seeing people that have hurt people, that have victimized people, and she's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
3 felonies, a gross, 9 misdemeanors, multiple DVs. Got a lot going on, sir.
yeah, I just figured, like,
Battery on a protected person, robberies.
So you got to think about all of the different crimes that she's talking about. Those are crimes with victims. Those are crimes where the perpetrator is in power and the victim is without. And oftentimes that's obviously the dynamic we have between perpetrators and victims. You have to consider the position of the judge is truly one of absolute power over his future right now. Now, the fact that he has such an extensive history should be a red flag for people, because for those of us who have worked in mental health, I currently work in mental health, for those of us that have worked with people who have substantial mental health issues, as they refer to with him, and which we'll talk about in a second, impulsivity and unpredictability can come with that. Now, the vast majority of people with serious mental health issues are not violent. That is typically not what we see. But for those that are, for those that have a history of it, you do have to be very careful.
Attempt home invasion. Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just...
I just figured, like, I'm in a better place in my mind, in my mental health. I have a support system. I just got.
So you'll see his eyebrows are raised right there. So I talk about in many videos that we want to bring emphasis to our face. We want people to hear what we're saying when we raise our eyebrows. And right now he's talking about all the positives that he's been through, all the good things that he's doing. So I think that in those moments, he's really trying to connect with, here's the good things in my life, and this needs to be paid attention to. We'll watch this again, then we'll keep going.
In my mind, in my mental health. I have a support system. I just got hired as a teamster for, a union, making $20 an hour. And, like, the reason behind every single domestic violence, I've been dealing with mental health, and I didn't know that I was dealing with mental health. And they put me in mental.
One thing you've got to keep in mind is how significant certain mental health issues are. So he's talking about that all of these acts have been perpetrated due to mental health issues. Some people, as we've seen over the past year, if you watch true crime, have used that as cover to mask bad behavior. Some people may genuinely be dealing with those issues. I'm not suggesting either way for him, but I do understand that as he's talking about this is where things are building up. That if somebody has a significant mental health history and violence is involved, that there should be more safeguards for his own safety right now. Not just the safety of the judge, but it would prevent him from doing something like what's about to happen.
And I realized I have a problem with this, and, like, having a dictionary and, like, understanding myself, getting to know myself a little better, and applying it to my personality, and having an epiphany at that moment. those instances and just like trying to learn from my mistakes.
Once again, you're seeing a lot of emphasis. He's moving his hands a lot. He probably feels a lot related to what he's talking about.
I feel like I shouldn't be sent to prison, but if it's appropriate for you, then you have to do what you have to do. But I figure that.
So he just said, if it's appropriate, you have to do what you have to do. So most of us would think, okay, he's accepting this. He is now in a place where he is going to accept whatever the judgment is. When you're working with people that have serious mental illness, the behaviors don't always chain together the way that you think they should. So yes, he seems calm right now. Yes, he seems reasonable right now. There probably should have been more safeguards in place.
If I'm in a better place in my life, I'm not doing drugs. I'm not out there committing crimes now. And I feel like I should be given a shot because I'm in a better place than I was. And so, but I'm a person who never stops trying to do the right thing, no matter how hard it is.
And another challenge is the fact that he is speaking coherently. He's connecting thoughts together. He's not catatonic. He's not speaking gibberish. Like, everything he's saying makes sense. Whether or not you agree with it is another thing. But everything that he's saying makes sense. So once again, people are assuming his behavior is going to be more predictable than it actually is.
And I just, and I'm trying, and I never give up trying to do the right thing. I know I'm not a rebellious person. I don't.
See, there go the eyebrows again. I'm not a rebellious person.
I know I'm not a rebellious person. I don't want to be standing there. I don't want you to have to, sit up there and waste your time as well. But the criteria of me saying this is that I'm a person that never stops trying.
So having worked with severe and persistent mental illness, there was always certain ways that you could mentally categorize certain patients. Some of them were very predictable. They were very paranoid or whatever it was, but you had a basic idea of what their behavior was going to be. Oftentimes they acted out of fear. But there was always a group that was a lot less predictable. They were the ones that might attack somebody or attack you or act out violently. So what's getting ready to happen is not really a shock to me based on some of the personalities I've seen. There are people who I've known that in this situation would be capable of something very, very similar, behaviors leading up to it and everything. Context is key with something like this. The more you know about somebody's history, the more you're able to take the appropriate precautions. And it seems like in this situation, either people weren't familiar enough with his history or didn't take it seriously enough to know what should and shouldn't happen here.
It was suggested by the DA. I would have no issue with that, but to suspend it rather than just send him to prison for any length of time. I think it makes more sense given the circumstances and his ability to do probation successfully than given this opportunity.
So if you're looking at his body language as they're talking about his history, he seems to be listening. He seems to be engaged with his attorney. One thing we're not seeing a defensive stance. So in situations like this, watching the body language is not going to give you as much of a clue in as the context and the history. And that's really what's important with this, is that body language is very powerful, very important. And for people that are acting rationally, we tend to see a buildup when it comes to body language. But when people are dealing with serious mental illness, as they claim here, I don't know what his diagnoses are. I'm not going to get into that because I don't feel like that's the purpose of this video. But the claim is that he has serious mental illness. And with that, there is a certain degree of unpredictability if it is someone with serious mental illness that also has a history of violence. You may not see what is going to lead up to that. But what's important is the fact that he's energetic. If I was in this situation, I would be concerned based on the dynamic that I'm seeing. Of the people that I referred to earlier, the ones that were less predictable, I know that if there are certain ways that I had spoken to them, if I talked down to them or if I cut them off or if in some way they felt that I was not respecting them, they absolutely would have attacked me.
I appreciate that, but I think it's time that he gets a taste of something else because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
So this result to me is somewhat less surprising than you might think. Now, not specific to Mr. Redden because I don't know his history well. As I've said, it's more of an example of the types of impulsive behavior that I've seen. But when people have serious mental health histories, when people have a history of violence, and that it can become very unpredictable and very quickly devolve into situations where people get attacked, jumped, whatever it is. So aside from the physicality of this, the surprising physicality of this, the result that he attacked the judge is not entirely shocking.
With the laws of the state of Nevada, this court
You also have to consider the fact that when people are impulsive, when their adrenaline is really going, when they really let things go, people are capable of being incredibly strong when all their inhibitions are down. So in a situation like this, it's going to be very, very hard to restrain somebody, particularly if it's secondary to some sort of mental health issue, if they are just focused on causing harm or doing something like this. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm blaming the judge for the way that she was talking to him. I'm sure she gets tired of criminals on a daily basis. I'm sure after looking at his history, she felt like, okay, the mental health court is obviously not doing anything for him, so he's going to go to prison. So I do understand the way that she was speaking to him, the conclusions that she made, but at the same time, I'm not entirely shocked that somebody who has the kind of history they're talking about with him could do something like this. Now we're going to skip to the actual sentencing. So this was going to be a sentencing. Obviously, it was postponed. Now we're going to watch what actually happened during the sentencing that was a follow-up to this. So one of the things you're already seeing, he's looking very wide-eyed. It looks like he's smiling at somebody. It's behavior that you wouldn't necessarily expect from somebody when they're getting taken into court with all of this on.
Mr. Almaci is here now. For the laws of the state of Nevada, this court does now sentence you in addition to the $25 administrative assessment fee, $150 DNA fee, the $3 DNA administrative assessment fee, and $250 indigent defense fee, 19 to 48 months in the Nevada Department of Corrections.
Now you'll notice she just said 19 to 48 months. So he has been sentenced to 19 to 48 months, and he's not even reacting right here. He's just looking around. But they are claiming serious mental health issues. And this behavior, once again, this is not entirely shocking. He doesn't seem entirely engaged. We'll keep watching.
How much credit for time served does he have?
It's 0 days. He was on probation when he committed the offense and was revoked on probation.
And you see him looking at the camera, wide-eyed, just sort of looking around. Behavior that we don't typically see with most criminals in situations like this.
To serve the jail time October 25th. That time it expired at or about the time of the plea. So,
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and wrap things up here. The frustrating thing about situations like this is there's no good solution. We're talking about someone with a history, from what they claim, of significant mental health issues. I'm not, like I've said, as a psychologist, I'm not going to talk specifically about his mental health issues and what comes with that, other than the fact that they've said it's serious, and sometimes we see unpredictable behavior from people with serious mental health issues. Sounds like he's been through mental health court a couple of times. It apparently was not entirely helpful because there have been other crimes that he's ultimately committed. And then in this situation, there were not safeguards in place for the judge or for him that allowed a situation like this to happen. So it becomes very challenging to figure out what's a good balance. To have people handcuffed to come in for something like this? Maybe, but also do people feel like that's going too far? There's so many variables you have to juggle with things like this. But unfortunately, unless people really know his history, know what he's like, have an idea of what kinds of behaviors to expect from him, then things like this may happen. As I've talked about, I have absolutely known people with serious mental health issues that would do the exact same thing if given the opportunity, or I've seen them do similar things. Not the leap, of course, but I've seen them attack people almost seemingly out of nowhere. So this kind of behavior does happen. It's sad, it's unfortunate, and hopefully he's able to get whatever help that he needs to be able to recover from his mental health issues so that nobody else is victimized by the kinds of behaviors that the judge was talking about. So hopefully this video helped you understand the importance of context and people's history when you know it, when you can put safeguards in place. If there are other videos you want me to analyze, if there's other people in the news you want me to take a look at, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get wrapped up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.